go and record. You're like, we're recording. First off, we are going to throw on the wheel. So how much clay do you need? Well, it depends on how good you are. People can throw 50 pounds at a time. These wheels are set up for 50 pounds at a time. I can't do that. So I say potato. I go for like potato size. And in fact, I like the word potato, and I'm talking like giant, like Yukon gold potato from Idaho. So I also kind of make it a little bit pointy at the bottom. Are you okay? Okay. So I kind of make it a little bit pointier at the bottom, and it's all nice and round. If you get like weird denty kind of things like that, kind of smush them out a little bit. You want really soft clay, and you want clay that's been wedged thoroughly. You'll understand why in a second. I'm going to throw this down. This technique is called throwing on the wheel, yet that's about the only time you throw anything. I don't know, it's just what they call it. What I'm going to look at, is it actually in the middle? See these little concentric rings? What I notice, it's closer on this side and it's further on this side. So I'm going to give it a little push, 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 and try to get it as centered as possible. Now, before I get too carried away, do I have any jewelry on? Take it off. This watch is going to get destroyed. Take it off.
It stopped.
Oh, take off any jewelry. For instance, I had a watch on. Don't just set it aside because you'll forget it. So put it in your pocket. Don't just leave it out somewhere. Also, don't have anything dangly. Go ahead, grab it. In that plastic container next to my desk. So if I have a hoodie on, dangly. What this could happen is it could grab and it could go, and I could get sucked in. That's not fun, right? Did you like the visual? So I'm going to take my hoodie off, and sorry about showing my back. I'm taking my hoodie off, so I have nothing dangly. I have long hair. I don't want this to happen, right? So I put it in a pony on the back of my head instead of draping down in front of me, getting in my clay. Okay, next. I've thrown on the wheel. What's up? I want to make something. The ultimate goal. You want to make something 2 times taller as it is wide. That's your ultimate goal. What supplies do you need? You need a large bucket of water. Temperature is up to you. I don't like freezing cold, so I make it tepid, room temperature. You need some sort of a block. You can get it out of the wedging counter. That way when you take your project off, you have somewhere to put it in the end. I'm thinking ahead to the end. I also need a ceramic sponge. Not a cleaning sponge, but a ceramic sponge. These little yellow cellulose sponges should never touch anything but clay. I didn't say but, I said clay, okay? So they only touch clay. No cleaner, no solvent. A needle tool is a helpful tool to have. And a wooden rib. As long as it's not metal, you can use anything you want. This is called a rib because originally the first potters used actual animal ribs. And so they just kept that name, and now they use different materials. This is wood. There's also rubber and plastic and metal. I like the little hole that's here. The reason for that hole, this will get really slimy and slippery. That hole gives you a place to grab onto. And a wire tool. I love potters. They call things as they are. This, my friends, is a wire tool. Literally a wire with 2 handles. 2 handles, wire. Okay, that's what you need. Basic tools. You really don't need a lot. It's mainly the wheel that's really hard to get your hands on. Over on the side you currently can't see, there's a power button. I want to make sure the power button is on. Also, there's a foot pedal. Can you see the foot pedal out there? I kicked it way out. Foot pedal. We need to make sure that it's going to be able to be accessible. I'm right-footed, so I put it on my right side. I mean, I'm right-handed, which kind of makes you right-footed. I don't know. So I'm going to set it to the speed that I want, which is full speed ahead. Whoa, what happened? It didn't turn on. You got to turn the wheel on. Full speed ahead. If I put it all the way flat, it's going to go as fast as possible. If I pull it back some, it slows down, but it maintains that speed. What I don't want to hear is this. Ah! That sound is terrible. Inside of that big, bulky looking, strong looking pedal, not strong. Tiny little delicate plastic pieces, and they will break if you slam this down. So do not drive this like a sports car, okay? This is like mom's old beat up whatever that's about to fall apart. Be nice to it. I'm gonna make it go as fast as possible. Taking my foot off, putting my pedal under my wheel. Now I can focus on wheel. Please take your foot off the pedal, okay? Hi, that's my face. Here's my clay, here's my hands. I want you to watch what I do the first time. So what do you have here? We have wobbly lump of clay in the middle. Watch what I do. And I'm gonna lean forward a whole bunch just so you know. I'm gonna get my hands crazy wet because it's winter and my hands are crazy dry anyway. And watch what I do here. You love that noise. What did I do?
Centered it.
Yeah, I made magic happen. I made it go right in the middle. There's no wobble whatsoever. This very first step is called centering the clay. Why do I love ceramics so much? Because they know how to name stuff to make it make sense. Centering the clay, it's in the middle. How did I do it? Well, partly magic, partly skill, partly wizardry. So here we go. Imagine a line running right down the middle of my arm here. This line is going to go right to the center of my clay. If this line goes over here, do you see what's going to happen to my wrist? Ouchie, that's going to hurt. I'm going to be pushing my wrist backward. If my arm is over here, I'm not going to get a lot of strength behind it. It's not getting power into it. So this line in the middle of my arm needs to go straight to the middle of my clay. Okay, my clay is wobbling. Do you see that? Lots of wobbling. Get my hands super wet. You want to have your own personal slop bucket, a big bucket. I can fit both my hands in it. My left hand, because I'm right-handed. If you are left-handed, switch this process. You're going to go to the other wheel. It can go for left-handed. It's going to spin the other direction. With that line down the middle of my arm, right to the middle of my clay, I'm going to push. Now, not only that, but watch what happens if I just put my arm on it. Do you see my arm jiggling here? I have no power this way. To get power, I need my body. Look what I do. I angle down. I double down. I put my arm into my body, and I push with my left hand. Notice how it gets taller. So what does my right hand do? My right hand says, get down. My right hand is going to keep it at the correct height that I want. My left hand is going to make it so it doesn't wobble. So my two hands are always working together. Now, it's not wobbling right now, but if I let go quickly, it is going to wobble. That's a pro tip. Please don't let go quickly. All right, check this out. I'm going to do it again. With my body, lots of water. I'm going to push in with my left hand. With my left body, I'm pushing really hard. I make it look easy, but I'm pushing really hard. I ate lots of Wheaties for breakfast, and I'm going to slowly let go. Woo, girl, look what I did. It doesn't wiggle anymore. This is called centering. They also call this mastering the clay. When I took the clay up tall and brought it back down and pushed it in the middle, that's mastering the clay. Notice my hands dry out really quickly. It's winter and it's clay, so those two things happen. I keep reloading with lots of water. Okay, we've got a lumpful of clay. Now I need to make it open. So this next step is called opening the clay. Yay for good names. You can do it several different ways. One way, you can keep your hand based on the outside so it doesn't wiggle. You can put your hand on the inside and working the two hands together. Now see how it started to wobble a little bit? Look where my wrist is. See why? It needs to rotate over. I lost my strength. So that's a good way to check. I'll fix that real fast. Stop wiggling. And I'm going to push my thumb in the top to start to open this a little bit. I'm going to hold it steady, and I'm going to let go. Now, the nice thing about having a little hole now is I can put some water in there. It's too fast now, though. I need to slow it down a little. So I'm pushing my pedal down just a little. Each step that I go, I'm going to make it slightly slower. So the first step, you want to make it as fast as possible. I'm adding some water in the hole, and I'm going to push into that hole. My goal is I want to try to push my fingers in Ooh, see that wobble? That's okay, that happens. Stop it, don't let that continue to happen. That means I need to get stronger with it. I'm gonna hold my fingers steady and say, no, you can't do that to me. The whole trick to this was keeping things centered. So I'm holding steady inside and outside, trying to get rid of that wobble. Now my hands just got a little bit dry, so I'm gonna slowly let go, add some more water. Can you see inside of that hole where I'm getting down into the wheel head? The wheel head is the metal thing that's the actual wheel itself. This is the wheel head. So now that I've made this hole a little bit deeper, I can get my fingers in, and what I'm going to try to do is pull it toward myself. I think about this like a clock. This is 12 o'clock, this is 3 o'clock, this is 6 o'clock, so this has to be 9 o'clock. I'm going to pull this towards 6 o'clock, but if I do it now, it's too fast. Slow it down a little. With really wet hands, I'm going to pull this at 6 o'clock. I'm still going to keep my left hand on the outside. My right hand is pulling toward myself at 6 o'clock, and I already feel a problem with this clay. Remember how I said that wedging is super important? I did not really wedge this clay very well. So I'm feeling some pretty big air pockets in here. That's going to be a real problem here in a second. I'll show you why. So, it's a bowl. It's just like when you started your pinch pot. The bottom of the bowl is this thick. What? That's too thick. The top of the bowl is just right. So we need to squeeze this thick clay at the bottom, and just like the pinch pot, when you squeeze that, where does the clay go? It has to go somewhere. It's going to go up. So here's how we do it. I'm going to take a little scoop off of the bottom. Notice how it kind of creates a little groove under here? That makes it groovy. I couldn't help myself. I like to use this part of my finger and stick that in the groove. I take my other hand and use my fingertips, and I go all the way to the bottom. When I squeeze these together, as I squeeze, I try to get to the same consistency. So if it's this thick, I'm going to squeeze to here. I'm going to pull that all the way up. I'm never going to pull and get my fingers closer. I'm going to squish and pull. I'll show you what I mean. My hands work together. I think I just got clay on you.
Oh, you're okay.
I'm so sorry.
You're okay.
It's a messy job, by the way. The splatter guard is there to help, but it doesn't solve it all the way. So I'm mainly pushing in with my outside hand. And as I push, it's slowly moving up. Now, here's a problem. Right there, do you see how it's really starting to wobble? I'll be able to show you in a second why that's happening. There's either an air pocket, but it feels like there's a really hard piece of clay right about here. And so that's what's making it go so crazy. So I'm probably going to lose this, which is a great example. I like being able to show you when problems arise. All right, we're going to try it again. It's going to get crazy and this might go flying off. Get ready for it. This is like NASCAR. This is why we watch this stuff. It's for the excitement, for the adventure, when things start to go crazy. So I'm squeezing on the outside. Right there. Right there is where it is. There's a hard chunk of clay right about here. Now, I will not be able to get this to go 2 times taller than it is wide, but check out what I can do. When you run into problems, because problems do arise, I'm going to slow it down a little bit, and I'm going to do that same trick we showed before. I'm going to use my needle tool, holding it steady. Check this out. I'm going to cut off where that bad piece of clay is. Go all the way through and lift off, so I can get rid of some of where that bad stuff was. Now, when I stop this, we're going to see how it's thicker here and it's thinner there. That's where that thick chunk is. It's actually right here. There's like a dry, thick chunk in my clay because I didn't wedge it well. So let's see what I can do with this. All right, I'm going to take that little groove out, make it groovy, add my water. Let's see what I can do. This is why wedging is so important. As I get towards the top, I'm going to hold it for a second. I can feel it. It's right there. I wish I could show you. I wish I had like feel-o-vision. I'm going to slow this down a little bit. You can see it. Can you, let me use the light. It's right here. there's like a hard chunk of clay that's like right here. Can you kind of see how that bulges out a little bit? That's the problem I'm running into, is I'm trying to pull up and there's a dry chunk inside the wall. So I'm going to try to cut a little bit more off. This kind of stuff is actually good for demo because you get to see how to problem solve when you get really bad problems. Ah, that was exciting. So again, see that bit right there where it's thicker? That's because there's a hard chunk right there. So I'm going to try again. Why not? At least I can still show you the last steps. I just can't show you the actual 2 times taller than wide. And that's okay. Or at least it's going to be okay today. So as I squeeze, it's going to make it get taller. And I keep the same consistency all the way up. And when I get to the top, whoa! So this happened because that hard chunk at the top is heavier, and so it causes that weight to fall down. Now, some people would go, hey, there's actually something kind of cool there. What if you took this and turned this into a pitcher? What if we pulled this out? This became the spout. What if we then put a handle on this side and it kind of has this twisted effect? That's how a lot of pitchers came to existence, is stuff like this. If you don't want to make a pitcher, and I don't, I want to make a cup. Guess what I can do? Right below that twist, look at me. I'll just cut it off again. So you see how pieces can evolve? That's kind of the cool thing about this too. I'm going to take another little groove out, get my hands wet. I'm going to do it again, because why not? It's not as big as I want it to be in the beginning, but guess what lesson I learned? It's important to wedge your clay. And you get to see me pull up the walls quite a few times. I get to the top, I hold for a second. All right, so once you have a shape, a cylinder is what we're going for. The reason we go for a cylinder is you can turn this into anything. I could have some fun. I could pull out the walls a little bit. I could turn this into a vase. I could flare the lip a little bit. There's a lot of stuff that I can do with it. To finish your piece though, there's a couple things. One, this wooden rib we talked about. All this extra clay down here, we want to cut that away. I angle the rib so the clay is going to come up and over. I wouldn't go this way because the clay is going to get trapped. So I'm going to hold this flat against the wheel head. Again, it's wood, so it's not going to hurt the wheel head. And it's going to cut away that extra clay at the base. Isn't that nice? It just takes all that extra away. I can also hold it against my project and cut away the extra clay down there as well. So this is a really nifty tool for that. Some people just use their fingers. I use this. We've seen the needle tool in action. We use that to be able to cut the top off. So anytime you hold it with both hands steady, slowly move it towards your clay, and then poke it all the way through. It'll take the top off. We can also use the sponge to clean up any edges and kind of round it off and make it nice and even. Most importantly, do not forget this part. I'm going to say a bad word. Are you ready? I know it's coming. Here it is. I learned this from a Japanese potter. And what he told me was, I need to compress the bottom so that I don't get an ass crack. Okay, you only know how confused I was. He's like, yeah, you have to push your sponge down in the bottom and get rid of all the water and push real hard so you don't get an ass crack. And I was like, why are you calling it an ass crack? He's like, no, an ass crack. And so we had this long kind of thing of like, what is an ass crack? What he's talking about is an S crack. What happens is if you don't push down really hard on the bottom here, what will happen, especially if you leave any water in there, so way down in the bottom, is that the bottom will break and it creates an S-shaped crack. So called an S crack. So make sure, really important step, push down in the bottom, compress it, and get the moisture out. Okay, when you're ready to set this thing free, you need a piece of paper. Can somebody grab me a piece of paper? You need a piece of paper to put on the top, so that way it makes it so it's like a little bubble, and so that way it supports it. Thank you so much. So when I put the piece of paper on top, I want it to actually attach all the way around, but you don't want to push it really hard. If you've ever had a balloon and you push on a balloon, you know how it goes back to shape? That's what we're trying to achieve here. if you do not do this step, what can happen is when we go to push on this project, it's going to deflate it and it's not going to go back to the right shape. I'm going to use my sponge. I'm going to add water around my wheel head. And I'm going to use my wire tool. This is the only time metal touches the metal wheel head. I'm going to wrap it really tight around my fingers. I'm going to press really hard down into that water, and I'm going to cut this all the way across underneath my project. I'm going to grab water on the back side, pull this through again, and this is where I typically get a lot of clay on myself. If you let go of this wire quickly, it's going to shoot out and it's going to throw clay on everything. It's really hard not to make a mess with this. Last step. Do you see these little thumb tabs? This is tricky. You're going to squish. So I'm putting my hand under. I'm going to squeeze. At the same time as I squeeze, watch what my thumb does. It's going to roll under. I'm pushing down and pulling forward at the same time. I'm going to take my little splash guard out. I'm going to grab the board. I'm going to dry off the the pinky part of my hand. And I'm only going to push at the wheel head side as far down as I can go because I'm going to trim this later. And I'm going to push my project off onto this board. It should slide right off like that. And woohoo! I've got a finished piece. This piece will now go in a bag in my shelf. All right, I'm going to do something though. I'm going to do something. Watch this. I'm going to break it. I'm going to cut it in half so you can see what I was trying to go for, and I can critique myself. Oh, look at that, you guys. It's pretty. I did good. I did real good. So when I cut this in half, what I'm critiquing is this. The walls are the same consistency all the way up. Notice how it doesn't go super thick to thin? I left it a little thicker here, but here's why. In the end, we're going to let that dry a little. The next day, we're going to come back and put this upside down. And we're going to trim away this part here, and we're going to create a foot. So we're going to cut that part out, and we're going to cut any extra part away from the sides. So imagine then when it's turned right side up, if we cut that little foot piece out, look how good that's going to look. Ooh, girl, look at that. I can cut away all the extras at the bottom where I had to use my hand to push it away. So in the end, it's going to have a really nice foot on it, except for that, whatever that is. Poop. It's going to have a really nice shape to it here. It'll have a foot on it, and that'll be a really nice finished piece. So your goal is nice, consistent walls. Okay, last step. I'm going to get my sponge out of my bucket so it doesn't accidentally end up in the slop bucket. I'm going to go ahead and put my splash guard back on. It just slides on, pops back in place, and I need to clean my wheel because another class is coming in to use this. I have a lot of extra here. I'll take my wooden rib and clean that off. We will only have to clean the splash guard out once a week, so don't worry about that. We're doing the bare minimum to get ready for the next group. I'm going to turn my wheel on. With my sponge, this is the one thing I kind of like cleaning. Check this out. From the middle, I go out to the side. Ooh, look at that, you guys. Yee, it's so pretty. I do that a couple times. And it's ready for the next group. That's all I got to do. Now, if I have time to throw some more, I'm going to take a paper towel, dry this off, get new clay, and do it again. I'm ready to rock and roll again. You have to make sure this wheel head is dry though. If this is wet, it's like a slip and slide. If you put your clay on a wet wheel head and you make it go, it's going to fly off and splatter against the wall. This is the electric wheel.